Welcome to The Difference. I'm Steve Castile, and today I have a conversation with an accidental friend that has become a lifelong friend named Chris Diggs. Stay tuned.
You are listening to The Difference, a presentation from The Hour, a 54-year ministry. Steve, first we started on radio, then went to television, then we went streaming online. So at Our Stream, you can watch our programming from all those years. So it's at thehour.org. And now, here we are. Okay, Steve, today it's your chance to get your digs in.
Hey, man, I'm telling you.
You
one
mentioned
of my
an
favorite
accidental
digs.
friend.
Yes.
Explain to folks, what is an accidental friend?
Well, it's really funny, and you'll hear this in the podcast. Krista and I have lived in Mississippi. I've lived most of my life. He's lived here all his life. We both lived in the Delta, but we had to meet in Zimbabwe on a mission trip with the conference. And so today we're going to visit with Reverend Chris Diggs, who has probably the most different heart of anybody I know. His passion, his desire to be an agent of God's kingdom and grace, and his resilience in the midst of a lot of things have just made me admire him. And plus, Cindy and I just fell in love with him, and he'll tell you a story about my wife and and him as we were in Zimbabwe. But we hope you'll stay tuned. Welcome to The Difference. I'm Steve Castile, and today we're having a conversation with one of my favorite people. Reverend Chris Diggs is one of those exceptional people who, in his life, has run a gamut of faith that's kind of amazing and incredible. And the funny thing is, we both were talking about living in Mississippi, and we met in Zimbabwe, Chris.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, that's the craziest thing.
It is. It's just really weird. Well, one of the reasons I asked you, Chris, is, when I met you in Zimbabwe, I was just blown away by your heart, your passion, just some of the stories I was thinking about, giving leaving clothes there for the folks in the village and for the raid that happened while we were there, and just so many things. But in our rides around, our conversations, our experience, it was just obvious that your heart was sold out to Christ. And so I want us to start with you sharing a little bit about your faith journey, because you hadn't always been a preacher, have you?
No, as a matter of fact, I started working for the railroad as a railroad brakeman / conductor, June 6, 1992. As a matter of fact, I still remember my employee number, 742213-2.
There's some things you don't forget. Isn't it?
And, as a matter of fact, God called me into ministry while I was working for the railroad in Demopolis, Alabama.
Wow.
I was living in Columbus, Mississippi, and I would drive to Demopolis on Sunday nights, and I would stay there until Friday and come back.
On the CNG Railroad?
BNSF.
Oh, really?
And God called me into ministry then. Well, I was a grown man. I was around 28, 29. And my pastor, Reverend Benjamin Wax, told me that I could work under him, but I had to go back to school, and because I didn't have a college degree at the time. And I said, man, you got to be nuts. There's no way. I'm going to leave my job on the railroad.
Got a railroad pension. And
yeah. And to preach, he said, yeah. He said, you have to do it. So that's when my journey began. And I'm thankful to God because if I would not have started my journey in ministry, as well as with education in the academy, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking.
Exactly.
So you have to be careful when you say, Lord, send me. I'll go. And that led me to my first appointment in 1999 up under him as an associate. And I received my first appointment in 2003 under Dr. Danny Rowland was my DS. And then it was Dr. Carl Grubbs who took me on as his son in ministry. And he reiterated what Reverend Wax said with a little bit more force. And so I listened to him and went back to school, got my associate's degree at East Mississippi Community College. And I went on to Ole Miss, got an undergrad degree. And from there, went on to Gamma Theological Seminary, got a Master's of Divinity, and got ordained a few years ago, 7 years ago.
Well, from the railroad to the pulpit.
And you know what? After I left the railroad, and I had worked 16 years and 9 months, I told my wife, surely they'll make a mistake and mail me a check. Guess what? They never mailed one.
Oh, man.
So they never mailed me a check, so that was it. So, but I wouldn't take anything from my journey in ministry, because God has opened so many doors for me and allowed me to meet so many people. And my call to ministry is one that's very authentic. I accepted the call, and I still have the same passion, even to this very day. And the beauty of God is that God is everywhere. And God has the power and the knowledge to put people in your path. And it's a walk of faith, because you don't know who they are. So you have to trust God. And so that's the main reason why we're here today.
It is one of those holy intersections
Yes.
where, the thing that gets me about, we use the word God's prevenient grace, is that there's never just a one-dimensional intersection. Our meeting blessed both of us.
No doubt.
It changed our trajectories, and so when you think about what you said about God not only being everywhere, but knowing and so wise, just knowing that intersection would have so many implications in so many different ways, and it's just one of the intersections he puts in our life, leading us to those places he's prepared for us.
Yeah, and oftentimes I think back over this journey, which this is in August, this will be my 28th year in ministry, serving as pastor 23 years. And oftentimes I look back on the journey, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, God had to be in charge, because I couldn't have orchestrated this.
Exactly. Nor would you have done it that way.
Oh, God, no. Of course I wouldn't. And the amazing thing about our meeting and our encounter when I met you and your wife, I grew up in Monroe County, Mississippi, poor, and didn't come from an educated family. And we went to so many, had so many dinners and meals and all this kind of stuff. And I never will forget, we were at, I think it was old Zimbabwe in Africa. And we were eating dinner, and I was sitting by you and your wife. And I think we had duck soup.
We did. It was at the, what was it called? The Elephant Lodge?
Yeah,
or yeah.
And your wife, bless her, sweetheart, I love your wife, said that thing she does. They had all the silverware lined up, and I'm from, 5008 Diggs Lane from my and so I'm just used to getting silverware and just eating. She said, oh, no, Chris, no. I said, what do you mean, no? She said, start at the outside and come in. I said, I'm not starting anywhere. I'm going to eat this.
Just eat the soup. It was, and now she'll every once in a while just send you an emoji of a place setting or something. Just, talking about that trip, I think, we had started what was called the Chibaza Covenant. And
Sure,
we had gone
that.
to Zimbabwe.
Yes.
And we're making our ways around. And one of the places we stayed had been the former arboretum of Zimbabwe. It had been a beautiful garden place.
Yeah.
And we were staying there, and surrounding us were, I don't know I think they were Shona, who were in some of the small houses and huts. And we had heard that Mugabe was on a terror run. Yeah. And while we were there, you got word before we did that they had raided one of the houses and burned it, or were burning
Yeah,
it to the
yeah,
ground.
yeah.
And then you just went into action.
You know, I can sort of remember a little bit, but I do know that we stuck together
Yeah.
and were able to survive, what, 15,000 miles
Yeah.
away from home. And another thing I remember about that trip is that we were forced to come together as a group because I am the same complexion of many other people who were there. But at the end of the day, we're Christians, we're United Methodists,
Right.
we're Mississippians, and we're friends.
Yeah.
And we have to stick together in order to survive. And I remember that more than anything else.
That and riding in the van on top of the gas in the back end.
Diesel fuel, man, riding for miles and miles and miles. Yeah, and you know, here's something else. I had never met you, you had never met me, but we became friends
Yeah.
on that trip. And you know, we did World Communion
Yeah,
over there at Hilltop United Methodist Church.
it was.
And I remember, because I was just a part-time local pastor, I think, and we were all in stations getting ready to serve the Holy Communion. And I remember where I was serving communion. Most of the women sat in that section, and they came, and I remember looking at their nails, and I remember my daughter and my wife always going to get their nails done, and manicures and pedicures and all that stuff, and their nails were so rough, and they had dirt under their nails where they had been working out in the fields, and I saw the beauty of God, because if they could come at that particular time and celebrate the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, surely the goodness we ought to be able to celebrate in our own time.
That's I was telling you earlier, it's one of my favorite memories is on World Communion Sunday.
Yeah, we were there.
Of all the Sundays, to be in Africa serving communion in a Shona church where they were singing the hymns.
Yeah, with no music.
With no music,
Yeah.
a cappella in Shona.
Yeah.
We knew the tunes, you knew what they were singing. And to watch them come and receive, some of them in traditional garb, some of them in T-shirts with wrappers and Disney and stuff that some of them had gotten as through some of the missions. But you just realized how big God's table is.
You know, if you can recall, Steve, many of those people had to walk
Yes.
many miles to get to church.
And that had happened several times. You know, when we were there at the quarry, where a lot of people there'd been a tragic place. People had walked. That one young girl that brought 25 little boys that had come to the service. They were trying to teach Cindy how to play a drum, and they told her she wasn't very good. But you know, it did make you think of, boy, what dedication, what true deep faith to do what they did, and yet for them it was why would I not do this?
Yeah, and I think something that really, really touched me with that is that we live in the most advanced country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I think that we don't fully realize how blessed we really are.
Yeah.
Because I remember riding the first couple of nights we got there, and we were riding and it got dark, and you would see little campfires off in the distance, and that's where they lived. They were, sleeping outside, and I think, I can't remember, but I think back at that time, 85% of the people didn't have cars. Because you remember all the people walking.
Everybody walking on the side of the road.
Man, that was the most fascinating thing. And that was a great time.
It was, I think, I'd been out of the country before, but I'd never been in those circumstances. And, we went to the AIDS orphanage.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
We were helping dig the footing for Sadza Mill, and then one of my most vivid memories is when we went to the house of the lady who was showing them their house, and the turkey chased us all the way back out in the van.
Yeah, when we went out to little villages.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I remember, what was the guy's name? The driver. I can't remember
I
his.
can't
But he
remember.
took us to so many different places out in the
Well,
in the
and
bush.
didn't he take us to his house? He was going to show us the house he and his brothers were building,
Yeah.
and they had just gotten windows. And matter of fact, I was telling the story in a sermon the other day, and I said, some things are universal. He forgot to tell his wife he was bringing folks home, and she wasn't none too happy
yeah.
when we got there. But I can remember getting back on the van, and one of the ladies said, "Oh, I don't know how people could live like that. That's just so sad." And I just turned and said, "How much do you own your house?"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I said, they're building that house with their hands. They're
Yeah.
proud of it. It's sacred space to them.
Yeah.
It was just really a grounding of, boy, a reality check, like you said, of what a different world we live in and how much we take for granted
Each and every day.
every day.
Yeah, every day.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit more. You know, we met there. You've been in the ministry, as you said, for over 20 years, and you now reside in the Mississippi Delta.
Yes.
It's a different world.
Yeah. I grew up in Northeast Mississippi, and in 2018 I was appointed to Trinity United Methodist Church in Marks. In 2018 I was appointed to Haven United Methodist Church in Clarksdale. And I grew up in Northeast Mississippi, like I said, and once you get on Highway 6 and you go west and you cross 55 over in Batesville, and you drive about another mile or two, you go up a hill, and then you go down that hill, it's flat all the way
And
down
you never go up another hill.
to the Mississippi River.
Exactly.
And the one thing that I've learned about the Delta is that people that I serve have a strong affinity for God. Because, like I said, I grew up in Northeast Mississippi, and there's so many industries there, industries and jobs everywhere. But it's not like that in the Delta. And so people depend on God in order to sustain them on a daily basis. So you might have a person in Northeast Mississippi or in the Jackson area on the Gulf Coast or Hattiesburg somewhere. They would consider that as a menial job, as a cook or nursing home or something like that. But where I am in the Delta, that job is something special. So they have to work extra hard. And also another thing that you have to take in consideration is that per capita, most of the African Americans in the state of Mississippi reside in the Mississippi Delta. So you're going to have more teachers, more professionals who live there as well. So don't ever think that everyone in the Delta are poor,
Right.
and who are struggling, because some people are doing quite well. And one thing I love about that is that those people who are in authority, those who have done well for themselves, really reach back to help others. My first year there, we had several children in our children and youth ministries. Tradition in African American church, everybody gets something new for Easter. That's just a tradition. Well, there were several kids in our churches who weren't going to get anything new. And so I personally reached out to people in the church, and every child who came to church that Easter Sunday, they had new shoes. Little girls had purses, and that meant a lot to them. And so that's one of the things that we try to do, is try to make people feel special, important, and help them to understand with God, all things are possible. As a matter of fact, we have a young lady right now, a member of the church. She's at Brown Medical School in Providence, Rhode Island. We have another young lady at Ole Miss. We have another young lady at Mississippi State, several who graduated from community college. And that's one thing that we really try to emphasize is education. And with the power of God, all things are powerful. With God, all things are possible. And so we try to impart that on all of them. And something else we try to do, this has never happened at any church I've ever been. Every third or fourth Sunday at Trinity, we serve a community meal to everybody who wants to come. No charge. And the church supports this. And the reason why we do that is we don't want anyone to go home hungry. And so we try to do all that we can to reach out to those in the community.
Now, everywhere you've been a community person. It's not just that you're the preacher, but you find your way into the life of the community. So tell me, you're called, you are a leader in the church. How do you help lead your people into this sense that this is our parish, these are our people? This is not extracurricular. This is what we do.
John Wesley said the world is our parish. And Jesus, throughout his public ministry, performed over 37 miracles. And they happened in a litany of places. They didn't just happen in the Nazareth, Galilee, or Capernaum area. But they happened all the way from his hometown all the way through Jerusalem. And oftentimes when he went to Passover, he healed people on the way. And I think that when you limit the church to the four walls of the building where you worship, you do yourself a huge disservice. And one of the main things we did in Oxford was GED. Now, obviously, Ole Miss is there, University of Mississippi is there, but you have many people in the Oxford area who just weren't educated, they didn't have GED. And we partnered with Second Chance Ministries, and we reached out into the community to try to help people to get a GED, to try to better themselves in life. And one thing that we do in Delta is that I serve in 2 different counties, Coahoma County and Quitman County. And there's a lot of territory in between. So what I try to do personally is reach out to people and to get them to see that regardless of how your life is now, it does not have to stay like this. And that with God, you can achieve. With God, you can do better. And so we do things like we've been doing the Vacation Bible School, but we extend it to summer camps where we take kids to the Emmett Till Museum. We'll take them over to the college or something just to get them to see something different. And then this was a huge challenge to all of us during COVID. And, we have several people who live way out in the county. And after COVID and the churches were shut down, we had to come up with a plan overnight. How are we going to reach these people? So for the first thing we did was we did a noonday devotional. We did it 4 days a week, Monday through Friday from 12 to 12:30. It was like doing a revival that lasted for probably 60 weeks because we had several people, several seniors who couldn't get out.
Right.
So what we had to do is we had to set up this conference call, and they were able to get on every day at 12 o'clock. And then we started doing Zoom Bible study. So people who had never turned a computer on, we hooked them up with Zoom on their computers and their cell phones, so they were able to see someone. So we did Zoom Bible study. Then we did Zoom worship. And people, it really saved a lot of people because they were about to go crazy. We had several seniors who were isolated. They couldn't get out. No one could come in. And so we felt like that was a way that we could really reach people. And I think that was probably one of the best things that happened at that time. And we're still doing the Zoom Bible study. They're mad at me now because I didn't do it last night because I was at conference. And we still do the noonday devotion. We only do it once a week on Wednesdays. And being over there really changed my life. One quick story. I had a member of the church who died, a member of Haven, and his daughter was a member of the Baptist church, 45 years old. So on this Thursday, after the service at the cemetery, the young lady told her mother, you know, I really like Reverend Dees, I like Chris, and if anything happens to me, I want you to get him to speak at my funeral. Your mother says, no, you're Baptist. That's not going to happen. You're going to live a long time. 2 weeks later, I was there at the same place doing the young lady's funeral because she died of COVID.
Wow.
And I remember standing out there in the heart of the Mississippi Delta, flat land, the grimy mud on my feet, looking at the dark gray clouds hovering over me. And I looked up in the sky and said, God, what in the world am I doing here? When I said yes, I had no idea I would be in Clarksdale, Mississippi, on the other side of the world. But you know, it worked out, and you never know what life you're going to impact.
No.
And so that was something that was near and dear to me, that young lady thought enough of me. And, you know, it's just a difficult time.
Well, we were talking earlier, I lived in the Delta as a little child, and, you know, the saying there is once you get that Delta mud between your toes, it's kind of hard to get out. I also tell people that when I was living there, they still sprayed DDT, and I don't have to worry about mosquitoes anymore.
Yeah. You know, my first experience was in Indianola several years ago. And my wife, we were there, we just moved into the parsonage. And we were getting stuff out of the car, and my wife said to me, these mosquitoes are really bad. And I said, oh, they aren't that bad. I said, you're exaggerating. And then I tell the story that a mosquito so big flew up on my arm, and it tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'm getting ready to bite you.
Exactly.
And it bit the fire.
Well, I have friends who say, yeah, we use them to crop dust sometimes.
Yeah, that big. But overall, I love the Delta. I love the people at both churches. And I've made some lifelong friends there. And, you know, the itinerary is something special. And it's not for everyone.
Right.
But as a United Methodist, I'm glad to be a part of the system.
Yeah. Well, as we close out, we always try to invite our listeners to engage with you, but also, is there any way they can come alongside of you in your ministry? Is there anything y'all do that, you know, folks who listen could be a part of if they feel led to do that?
Yes, we have at our church, I have my own ministry called Upward Mobility Ministries.
Right.
And we have a website, and we have a Facebook page. And both churches piggyback off of that, my ministry. That way we can keep everything together and we can know what's going on. So, I mean, you can just follow us on Upward Mobility Ministries on Facebook, on our website. And we do a lot for people in the community. We serve meals. We do things for kids. We buy backpacks for school. We've even on many occasions taken people to the doctor. I mean, they're just a litany of things that we do. So the only thing they would have to just go to Upward Mobility Ministries.
And we'll post that on our Facebook page for those of you who are regular listeners, and do the link there, and invite you to go visit it and find a little bit more about Chris. Well, as always, I enjoy just our conversations. It was one of those cases where, you know, growing an old friend doesn't happen overnight, but making a new friend can. And that trip just, I count you as one of my favorite people. Sure. And I every time we have a conversation, I just think to myself, why don't we do this more often? Because it brings life to me and reminds me of how many extraordinary people God has called into his flock.
And I have the utmost respect for you. I think you know that. And I think we're doing something now that is much needed in the country as well as in the state of Mississippi. We're talking to each other.
Right.
Instead of at each other.
Exactly.
And you can learn a lot when you talk to a person, because once you talk to them, you find out that you have more in common than you think. And we have a lot in common, but we
Other
also...
than you being an
Yeah,
Ole Miss
I was
fan,
about to say that. I was about to say that. Proud graduate of Ole Miss.
there you go.
Yeah.
Go Dogs.
Toddy, toddy.
Well, thank you for joining us. And those of you who are listening, just remember, watch our Facebook page. It's Upward Mobility. You can go ahead and like it and visit it yourself.
Sure.
And Chris, we just thank God that he called you from the railroad into the ministry. And I know all the people whose lives you've touched and affected. Thank you too. So, God bless and Godspeed.
God bless you, my friend.
All
Let's
right.
do it again soon.
We will.
Okay.
Thank you, man.
So Steve, you here's this man from Mississippi, and you don't meet him in Mississippi. Your paths don't cross; they cross in Zimbabwe, and wow, leading to such a wonderful friendship. What a great conversation to have.
It is, and it's so funny because we text each other every once in a while. He's on our hour board, and Chris is he was on the board, and now he's on the advisory board for The Difference. Every time I see a place setting, I send him a meme of it after his encounter with Cindy at the dinner at the elephant retreat there in Zimbabwe, and he's always picking at her. But the kind of friendship we have is just one of those where, there are people that will always tell you the truth. There are people that are never pretentious, and just you see them unvarnished and unfinished. That's Chris. And so it's just so refreshing to be able to sit down and for us to share time like we did at annual conference, and to kind of regenerate each other. And we're going to make another visit. I plan to go up and for us to have a conversation about his nonprofit, and be able to meet some of the people that he helps along the way.
That's great. I know, you're having these wonderful conversations with folks, and I know people are having withdrawals, not having Anthony stories. I just sense that out there. I just sense people, a low murmur of people saying, so I'm going to share one quick story. You guys meeting in Zimbabwe, and we went to a 4-H convention one time and went to Washington, D.C., and my cousin and I, and she and I were there, but another guy was with us. So Jess and I said, we are here with people from all over the country in 4-H. I won for citizenship, so I got a free trip. And so we both kind of conspired and said, let's go and find the prettiest girls we can find and go talk to them and see where they're from. So we're looking around and we're scouting and we start talking to these girls, and from all over the country, and they're from Wiggins, Mississippi. so it was one of those, we are blessed with where we are, because we were trying to scientifically scout out the prettiest girls, and yep, they were from Mississippi already. So that's what I thought of when I thought of you. So aren't you edified? I
am edified, and the thing that I now have confessed that I didn't tell you when I came and did the Walk of Shame, from not pressing record for one of the podcasts, was everybody that walked in the room said, "Where's Anthony?"
Bless him. Or it was like, "Where's Anthony?" and nervously looking around.
Exactly.
He's not joining us, right?
No,
That's great.
it's like, do you know how to do this? And the proof was no.
But the fact that you didn't come back and give me a blank SD card thinking that you had gotten it shows that you do know how to do this. You just made a little flub there,
which has given me a checklist of how to connect the equipment, but also to make sure that you do the next step of turning it on.
And that's part of being different. Sometimes we do things differently and we record something or try to record something twice, but it just makes it all the better. And laughing at ourselves and being able to have fun and not taking ourselves too seriously, that's, I think, a vital ingredient in what we should be as believers.
Exactly.
And what we should project to others instead of taking ourselves. There are too many people taking themselves way too seriously. we're supposed to take God serious, and everything else is we're supposed to be loving each other. So
That's it.
there we go. Now we can
Dude.
take up an offering.
Now we can. And that's a great transition. We appreciate you guys listening to the podcast. Watch for the next one that drops. And as always, hey, remember, live loved.
You've been listening to The Difference, a presentation of The Hour. The Difference is made in conjunction with and partnership with the Institute for Southern Storytelling at Mississippi College. To find out more about the Institute and ways that we are partnering and mentoring young lives through storytelling, filmmaking, and more, visit us at southernstorytelling.mc.edu. And for more resources from The Hour and from The Difference, check us out at our Hour Stream platform with the streaming content at thehour.org. I'm Anthony Thaxton. Thanks for joining.